it's hard for us to admit, but menopause can be a really lonely place sometimes. Our bodies are changing, our hormones are all over the place, and at the same time, we may be going through major life events. Maybe we have an empty nest, or we're caring for our aging parents, or maybe we're going through our own relationship issues. And who can we talk to about our feelings? Nobody, because we don't talk about menopause, do we? So we're left feeling alone, isolated, and even a little stuck. But it doesn't have to be that way. A few weeks ago, we dedicated an entire episode of Real Insights to the topic of loneliness, why we feel it, and what we can do about it. And the response was incredible. So we can talk about it. And today, I want to share another resource to help us beat loneliness and live a happier life. So stick around until the end, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I just finished reading this amazing book called The Joy of Connections by Dr. Ruth Westheimer, and I couldn't wait to talk about it. I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Ruth. She was a therapist, an author, and a media personality who spent her whole life helping people build better, happier relationships. Sadly, she passed away not that long ago, which makes this book even more special. What I love about The Joy of Connections is that it's not just a book. It's like having a guide, a friend, and a cheerleader all in one. Dr. Ruth talks about her own experiences with loneliness, including how isolated she felt after losing her family in the Holocaust. Her insights are so personal and so real. I think a lot of us can relate to them. One of the main ideas in the book is that the first step in beating loneliness is to admit that you're feeling alone. I know it sounds simple, but how many of us actually do this? We put on a brave face and tell everybody we're okay. But deep down inside, we're hurting. Dr. Ruth suggests standing in front of the mirror and saying out loud, "I'm lonely." Yeah, it might feel weird or even a little painful, but there's power in owning up to it. Another point that really hit home for me was how Dr. Ruth talks about taking care of yourself. As a woman in menopause, our bodies and emotions are going through so many changes, and we're so busy taking care of everybody else, it's easy to forget about our own needs. But Dr. Ruth reminds us that if we're not getting enough sleep, eating well, or moving our bodies, we're not going to have the energy or the confidence to reach out and connect with other people. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but Holly, reaching out is scary. What if I get rejected? Believe me, I get it. Rejection is tough. And it's a fear that holds so many of us back. But as Dr. Ruth points out, rejection is a part of life. It doesn't define our worth, and we can't avoid it if we want to live fully and connect with others. One last thing from the book that I want to share with you today. Loneliness is often invisible. We can be surrounded by people, by family, by friends, by coworkers, and still feel completely alone. We might be putting on such a good show that nobody realizes we're struggling. But as Dr. Ruth wisely says, if we don't admit we need help, help will never come. So here's my challenge to you today. If you're feeling lonely, acknowledge it. Say it out loud, even if it's just to yourself. And then take one small step towards connecting. Might be reaching out to a friend you haven't talked to in a while, joining a new class or group, or even just smiling at the stranger on the street. Every connection, no matter how small, counts. If you want more practical advice and heartfelt wisdom on beating loneliness, I highly recommend The Joy of Connections. It's like having Dr. Ruth as your personal guide and cheerleader, encouraging you every step of the way. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Loneliness is something we all experience, and there's no shame in admitting that you struggle with it. In fact, admitting it is the first step towards a more connected and joyful life. As always, I'd love to hear from you. Have you read The Joy of Connections? What tips do you have or found helpful in fighting loneliness? Leave a comment below and let's keep this conversation going. And if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Let's spread the joy of connection far and wide. Until next time, take good care of you. And remember, you are seen, you are heard, and you are never truly alone.